Hey everybody, my name is Brandon. Welcome back to Cinefessions, where we talk all things media. So one of the things I was hoping to do in 2023 was play catch up. I wanted to watch some of the 2022 films that I really wanted to see, but I just didn't get around to last year. And so that's what I've started doing. I know it's now late February, but that's what I started doing over the past few weeks here. And so I have 4 films that I wanted to talk about today. I'll mention a 5th, but I'm not really going to review it. So we're going to talk about 4 different films today that I've been catching up on in 2022. My thought is that this will be the first part of a number in this series, because I do have a list of 2022 films that I want to check out. So I'll talk about those as I go through them, maybe every 4 or 5, like in this video. So let's get into it. Before we do though, if you have a quick second, please hit that like button down below. That engagement really does help me out. But with that said, let's not waste any more time at all. Let's dive right in to part 1 of my 2022 catch up. I do want to note before I get into my first review that these are, 1, going to be spoiler free. I hate doing spoilers in my reviews, so these will be spoiler free. And 2, these are going to be really mini reviews, nothing full detail, no in depth. I'm going to make the synopses as short as possible and then kind of keep my thoughts as succinct as I can to get my thoughts out there in as brief and concise a way as possible. So just keep that in mind going in. These are going to be short and they're going to be spoiler free. I'll go through all of these in just simply the order that I watched them. So the first one I watched is Barbarian. This is directed by Zach Kreger, and I ended up watching this on HBO Max. So this is a horror film that people have been talking about for such a long time now. 1, because it was very popular, people really loved it, and 2, because it doesn't look like this is getting a physical media release at all, which is crazy to me. But people have been talking about it for those reasons, and so I had to check this one out to see if it was one that, if I ever did get a physical release, I needed to add to my collection or not. Barbarian picks up with our main character played by Georgina Campbell, who is excellent in this film. I think she does a great job from start to finish. She's just wonderful. But she is in Detroit on an interview, and so she's booked this Airbnb. Well, and it's in this really bad neighborhood also. So she gets there and it turns out the room or the house that she was going to stay at is double booked with this other random guy. So they kind of talk it out a little bit and she reluctantly agrees to stay there with this guy. And things kind of pick up from there. There's so much more to it than that, though. It's a lot to deal with, like the house itself, and it's just so strange. So this is really kind of a mix of like a home invasion film with a survival film, mixed with a lot of weird, really. So this is a film that I was digging a lot as it was going. I loved the first like half an hour, and then something happens and it was like, oh my gosh, I didn't see this happening. And then it keeps going again, and then another event happens and it's like, what is happening here? But it really lost me in that final act. Like the first 2 twists and turns I was on board for, very intrigued to see what would happen next. But I don't feel like they stuck the landing on this one. Like I said, what is great about this is kind of that intrigue building up to that final act. But then they kind of just go whole hog at the end, and it doesn't work as well as I hoped it would. This is one that I feel like I can understand why people love this, and it absolutely should get a physical media release. Would I add it to my collection? I mean, honestly, I probably would, because it's a horror film set in Detroit, which I'm just a sucker for. And Justin Long is in this as well. And I love Justin Long. I'm such a big fan of his. And so he's great in this. He is hilarious and just despicable in various ways. And it's just so fun to watch him in this movie, kind of dealing with this ridiculous and insane situation that is just so far beyond any realm of believability. But it's still fun to watch for the majority of the film. And it's creepy too. It's just like, what's going to happen is what I kept asking myself as I was watching it. I was gripped for the majority of the film. So unfortunately, this one, I appreciate what it was trying to do, but it didn't, like I said, it just didn't stick the landing for me. It didn't go all the way at the end like I hoped it would. And frankly, I don't really know how they could have ended it better or anything like that. It's just what they did here, I didn't love. And so I ended up giving Barbarian 3 out of 5 stars. I mentioned in my intro that there was technically a 5th movie that I watched, and I watched it after Barbarian, but I don't really want to talk about it. It was Skinamarink, and this is, well, I'm going to put up my Letterboxd review on the screen, and then I'm just going to move on.
Skinamarink, dinky dink, Skinamarink, do. I love you. I love you, sing it. I love you.
Frankly, I'm embarrassed that it took me this long to get around to this next film. Like, it was one of my most anticipated movies of last year. Life got in the way, I just didn't get around to it. So finally, I've corrected that, and I have watched The Batman, directed by Matt Reeves. So, like I said, I was so excited to see this film. I bought it day one on 4K, paid full price for it. Then it sat there until just a few days ago. Oh, you know what? Here it is. I forgot I do have this one in the physical form, so I will show it here. But this was a good movie. Did I love it as much as I was hoping I was going to love it? Honestly, no. But that doesn't really take away from it because it's still a great film and I cannot wait to see what they do next. But anyway, with The Batman, it's not an origin story, but it's definitely standalone. You don't have to know really anything about the Batman coming into it. You just got to, be excited to see what the Batman story is all about, which frankly, everybody watching knows what the Batman story is all about. But yeah, they touch on little pieces of his history as they go through this. So with this one, basically the Batman is trying to figure out who this serial killer is that is attacking some of the higher up politicians and police officers in Gotham City. And so of course it's the Riddler, putting out all these different riddles for Batman to solve. And what I loved about this was that Reeves really dives deep into the detective aspect of the greatest detective. And I never have seen that really in any of the other Batman movies. Now, obviously, that's a major element of the comic books, and I have read some of those. But in film, this really felt fresh and unique. And that's hard to say with a Batman movie because they reboot Batman very often. And so to say that this felt different is really saying something about what Reeves was able to do with this film. I was a huge defender of the casting choice of Robert Pattinson as Batman, but it took me this long to finally get around to it. So I wasn't sure if I was right or not. Was he any good or was it the wrong choice? And fortunately, I can say I loved him as the Batman. Now, playing as Bruce Wayne was a lot different than what I've seen from Bruce Wayne in the past. It's not Pattinson's fault. He did a great job with what he was given, but the character is written super emo. It felt like I was watching an early 2000s high school movie. It was so strange. So that part was a little bit weird to me. It kind of makes sense for the progression of the film or the arc of the film, but boy, he was an emo guy, and that was so strange. But still, I think Pattinson, he does really well with what he's given. I hope that we kind of move past that when we get to the sequel here, because I would like to see more of Pattinson's range, because with this, he's kind of one key throughout the entire thing, and it works, but he's just capable of so much more. So I still love the choice of Pattinson as Batman, and I can't wait to see what else he can do once he's given a little bit more kind of meat on the bones. I also have to admit that from the introduction of her character, I was in love with Catwoman. Zoe Kravitz did a fantastic job in this role. Honestly, probably my favorite Catwoman I've seen on film so far, which I know is difficult to say with Michelle Pfeiffer's character, which I love her Catwoman, definitely my second favorite, but I think she just does such a great job in this role. She really, it feels like this is the Catwoman that I would like to see, and she just nails it. So I loved the casting in this all around. I just think Reeves does a really good job of setting a very specific atmosphere and running with it the entire film. Now, this is a long movie. This is nearly 3 hours, which is absolutely ridiculous. Did it need to be 3 hours? No, it didn't. Was I engaged throughout the entire runtime? Yes, I was. And so I don't have a real issue with it being 3 hours, but yeah, it was a long one. But I loved the atmosphere in this, the mood that he was bringing. And I did talk about emo Batman not being my favorite, but I still think it fits kind of the aesthetic that he's going for. And then speaking of aesthetic, the cinematography on this looks great as well. So this is just a really strong Batman movie. Not my favorite. Dark Knight is still my favorite of the Batman movies, but I thoroughly enjoyed this one as well. So I'm going to give Matt Reeves The Batman 4 out of 5 stars. Next up is a movie I finished this morning. This is Nope. And this, of course, is directed by Jordan Peele. Another one, probably one of my most anticipated movies from last year, and I'm only now getting around to it, but boy, am I glad I finally did. We are following our brother and sister here. They own a farm that has a bunch of horses that do movies. And so it's Hayward's Hollywood Horses, I believe, is the name of their business. And so just that aspect is fascinating because that's a side of Hollywood that I've never even considered. But of course, there are farmers out out there that have animals that Hollywood hires. Like, that is just so fascinating. So I was hooked right from the get-go. All of a sudden, weird things start happening on their farm. They notice a cloud in the distance, and it doesn't seem to be moving. What's going on? And I really don't want to say anything else. Like, don't watch too much about this before you go into it. But I have to say, Keke Palmer as the sister role in this, amazing, an absolute breakthrough in my eyes. I've never seen her in anything else, at least that I know of, but oh my God, she steals the scenes. Like, she's wonderful. Right from her very first introduction, she comes running in late for something and then has to give this spiel to the cast that they're working on with the horse, and it is just boom, 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 like perfect. Oh, just that scene in the beginning sets her character throughout the entire film, and I loved it. I was so there for her. We also have Steven, how do you say his last name? Yen in this as well, along with Daniel Kaluuya, who is excellent in everything he's in. And it always blows my mind watching the behind the scenes with his accent, because you can't tell it at all when you're watching his movies. And so I love that when actors are able to hide their accents like that. I was terrible at accents when I was in school, and so seeing others do it so well is always awesome to me. The fourth main character in this is played by Brandon Perea, I think is how you'd say his name, and he's awesome as Angel as well. Like, he's kind of the conspiracy theorist of the group, and he just kind of like stumbles into their lives, but he fits so well. And so I just loved their instant connection and where things go from there. Like, this is just such a cool movie. First off, the cinematography on this is amazing. Like, the desert, the hills of West Virginia, my goodness, of California, like, they look awesome, especially on this 4K disc. It looked excellent. But I love the setting here. And then the special effects work looks great. They have Steven Yen's character runs this like dude ranch type of thing where it's an amusement park that's like an old Western theme. And it's just so cool. Like, I love the set pieces here, the set design on this film. There's a moment where the characters are scared by these creatures that show up, and it scared the living hell out of me. Like, I loved it. It was so creepy. Scared is a strong term. It was creepy, I should say. And I don't know. There's so much about this film that I really enjoyed. I had no idea where it was going. Does it end in like the best way? I don't know. Like, I'm not even sure I really understand what goes on at the end of this movie or kind of in the third act of this film, but I know I was having a good time, and I know I would like to watch it again. So this one is just such a weird film that, honestly, don't watch a lot about it. I know you just watched my review, but don't watch a ton about it if you haven't seen it. Just go into it as blind as you can, because it's weird and it's awesome. So I thoroughly enjoyed Jordan Peele's Nope. Jordan Peele is just one of the best out there in the business right now, and so I love watching anything he puts out. So I ended up giving Nope 4 out of 5 stars. The last one I'll talk about today is another horror film, and one that I just finished like 2 hours ago, so this is definitely first impressions or kind of an immediate reaction. But this one is directed by Scott Derrickson. This is The Black Phone. So let me start by saying that I feel that Derrickson is super underrated as a director. People just don't talk about him nearly enough, but he has some gems in his filmography. Not only did he do Doctor Strange, which not my favorite of the MCU, but still a really good film, but he did Deliver Us from Evil, which I loved that movie when I watched it. I think I gave it like 4.5 out of 5 stars, which is probably ridiculous, but I thought it was excellent. Then, of course, Sinister. Everybody knows and loves Sinister. He also did The Exorcism of Emily Rose, kind of a mediocre horror film, but then he does this, and this is so good. Another one that I just loved. So with The Black Phone, we are following this, it's like, has to be the late 60s, and we're following this small town where all of these boys are just disappearing. They're being kidnapped by this presumably serial killer called the Grabber. And we are following this like brother and sister. They live at home with their dad. Their mother, we find out, is no longer in the picture for whatever reason. The dad's an alcoholic, and so the brother and the sister are really close just because of what they've gone through. And of course, our main character is going to be taken by the Grabber, and it's the story of, will he survive? What's going to happen? How will they get him out? What's so interesting about this, and what I didn't know, is that there was a supernatural aspect to it. And frankly, typically with something like this, I don't really want there to be. But this worked really well. Like, I was so on board with everything that was going on here. The use of the phone, I think, is just so smart, and it works so well. And everything ties together. It works really well. I'll talk about the aesthetics on this one as well, because boy, oh boy, they make this thing feel like it is late 60s or early 70s, whatever it is. They make it feel like a period piece, and I love it for it. It really feels like a true crime story. Like, if you've ever seen Prisoners, it takes what Prisoners does, which is a phenomenal movie, by the way, one of the best, takes what Prisoners does and just turns it on a supernatural slope, I guess, or yeah, I don't know if I'm saying that right, but it adds a little supernatural element to it, and it still works just as well. Now, The Prisoners is a better film, don't get me wrong, but it's apples to oranges here. It's just, again, that vibe, what they're going for, this person kidnapping children. Ethan Hawke as the grabber. Oh my God, this dude is creepy. The masks that they have him wear are phenomenal. Genuinely creepy, genuinely disturbing at points what happens in this. A lot of things are implied, and that's sometimes even worse than if they show things on screen. Derrickson handles this so intelligently, and I loved what he was able to do with this. This is just a story for me. Mix in these creepy, disturbing elements with something that feels like it could be a true crime story, or at least inspired by a true crime story. It felt like Gacy, but with younger boys, and no clown. Sort of a clown, just a mask-wearing grabber, and it is creepy. I loved this movie. Again, just the way it kind of wraps up, how everything goes together. Like, it's a smart film. I thoroughly enjoyed this. Definitely recommend this one. I ended up watching this one on Amazon Prime Video, is where this one is playing right now if you're interested. So, highly recommend this one. So, I ended up giving The Black Phone 4.5 out of 5 stars. All right, so those were my thoughts on some 2022 films that I just didn't catch last year. So hopefully this will be the start of a series, of playing catch up, because I do have a full list of movies that I intend to watch from 2022 that I need to get around to. So as I watch a handful of them, I'll come on and share my thoughts with you guys. But let me know down below, do you like the mini review style? Do you want something different? Just let me know what your thoughts are, just so I have an idea moving forward, what you guys would like to see. But let me know also, what did you guys think of these 4, technically 5 movies that I talked about today? Was I right? Was I wrong? Let me know what you guys think down below on that and anything else down there. I always appreciate all that support, so thanks so much for that. But as always, if you guys enjoyed this one, please hit that like button down below. That engagement really does help me out, and if you didn't, thumbs down. That lets me know to change something as well. But like I always say, I don't just talk movies, I talk all things media. Books, movies, video games, graphic novels, manga, records. If it's media related, I'm interested in it, and if you are too, you might consider subscribing. All right, guys, so that's going to do it for today. I just want to say thank you all so much for checking this one out, and I want to encourage you to consume some media today. I'll catch you next time.